Any changes or corrections to the minutes?
Nope.
Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second? There's a second. All in favor, Ms. Jazinski,
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The minutes are approved. Moving on to old business, just by way of background, since we last met, Mary has held a series of meetings with people who had concerns about either the process or their job descriptions or their classification, whole host of issues. Mary's been meeting with them and in an attempt to at least make people feel that they were heard and to reflect everyone's input. And as a result of that, has made a few tweaks to the recommendations. We're going to only address a few of the classification issues today because there are several job descriptions that need to be, that will need to have addendums done to them before we can approve them. And so we had to put those off. We are going to have to meet the first week in January. We've been given sort of an extension to finish our work. So we'll get to that at the end of the meeting. So with that, let's move to item 3A1, the assistant accountant. You've seen the job description is in the packet. And Mary, at this point, why don't you go through your recommendations as to what we do with this position?
Certainly. Thank you so much. And I do want to start by saying I really appreciate the opportunity to have spent a little more time with people. I was able to come to town hall on 3 different days and meet with people. And that was an incredibly helpful and insightful process. So I truly appreciate it. With respect to the assistant town accountant, as we indicated in our initial report, the market survey shows that the position is below the market. After meeting with all of the assistants, we've made a recommendation that the appropriate grade for the assistant town accountant be the grade 5. And that's based on the scope and scale of the current responsibilities.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the job description? Okay, then let's first do that. I would entertain a motion to approve the revised job description for the assistant accountant position.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Well, I
John?
got a question.
Okay, go ahead. If you have a question, John, go ahead.
I got a question. Is there anybody else like the town accountant and the other town employees? Are they sitting in on this meeting?
Yes, there are some.
Okay. All right, I'll second it.
Okay, I see that Michelle is here.
I am here, yes.
Oh, sorry. We weren't aware of that. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Were you there for our, okay, we'll move on. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second to approve the job description for the assistant accountants?
John, do you second the motion?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none. Ms. Jazinski,
Aye.
Ms. Michelle Jones, Ms. Jones Johnson,
All right. Aye.
Mr. Thorburn.
Aye.
Okay, the job description is approved. Now I will make a motion to reclassify the assistant accountant position from a job grade 4 to a job grade 5.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? No. Roll call vote, Ms. Jazinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That is approved. Okay, going on to A2, Deputy Treasurer Collector. Excuse me. Currently, that's an Assistant Treasurer Collector position. And Mary, why don't you go over your recommendation for this position?
Certainly, similar to the assistant town accountant, the market survey did show that the position was well under the market. Also, the analysis of the job description against the other assistants that we looked at, and the issue of the titles of the having currently a deputy assessor and having a recently retitled deputy clerk. We recommend that the title of deputy treasurer collector and the salary survey align to be at the grade 6 level.
Okay, we have the revised job description for the new Deputy Treasurer Collector position. Any questions about that? John?
Why do we have under job descriptions, why are we going with Roman numerals instead of numbers?
I can't answer that. We have had a discussion about the fact that we have, I don't know, 30 different forms of job descriptions, that over time, I would like to put them all on one form. That's a goal of mine. And so they all look the same. They're all the same format. I anticipate that's going to take a very long period of time to accomplish that, but it is what it is. At this point, I think we're more concerned about the content of the job description than the format of it. So I guess that's all I'd say.
I do have a question. Why are we changing our job descriptions from the assistant to the terminology for deputy? What is the mindset behind that?
Mary, do you want to address that?
Sure. It's really for consistency across similarly situated positions. So the personnel board, the deputy assessor has been the deputy assessor, I believe, for a while. That was not part of our review. Recently, the personnel board approved a change in title for the assistant town clerk to be the deputy, have the title of deputy town clerk. So for consistency's sake, at that grade 6 level for those statutory positions, at that higher level of responsibility and scope, we recommend that you change that to be deputy, to be consistent with the assessor and the clerk. As I mentioned in the previous vote, the scope and scale and current duties of the assistant town accountant are more in line with the grade 5 assistant level. So there is that nuance.
Okay, I just wanted to understand the change in title. Okay, perfect. Thank you for the explanation.
Any other questions or comments?
I had a
John?
question. Mayor helps. Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Michelle, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Mary, when you look at other municipalities that are similar to us, is that title of deputy similar across the board? I mean, I guess in the market, does that title, do you see that title? Like if we go back and we have to do another comparative study, are we going to find these same titles in other municipalities that are similar?
It really is a distinction without a difference. You usually see deputy in a larger municipality. However, you've already got 2 deputies approved. So I would, my recommendation is to make it standard at that same level. There's 6 of one, half dozen of another. And usually it isn't a larger department, but it really makes a difference in the job description.
Yeah, and I asked that because I want to make sure that And I'm actually fine with the titling if we're consistent internally, but when we continue to look at studies, comparative studies externally, I don't want to have an inflated title that shifts the way that we look at these roles in comparison to other organizations. So,
It's a
but I'm
good
fine.
point. In
Mhm.
any survey, if it, in our municipalities, unless they're a huge department, they would be answering the same salary to deputy or assistant. So I'm not worried about that for you. If we're comparing to Worcester, there might be a deputy and an assistant, but that's not typical in a medium to small size town. So I see the point.
Thank you.
John?
Yeah. I don't like to be a nitpicker, but I would like to see those Roman numerals changed to classic numbers. I'm looking at these other, I don't find that Roman numeral in any other, so I would suggest that this is gonna be voted on, it's gonna go in the SAP. I would rather see those regular numbers than the Roman numerals.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I can't tell you that there aren't other job descriptions that we have already approved that have Roman numerals. I don't, but I don't feel strongly about it. I mean, we can certainly vote to revise and approve the job description if that's people's desire. I mean, it's a non-substantive change, but whatever people are interested in doing.
Well, being my nitpicker that I am, I move that we change those numbers to the regular numbers.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
Okay, any further discussion about that? All right, we will vote. Ms. Jazinski,
since it's bothering John that much, I'm gonna vote aye.
okay, Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Thorborn,
Aye,
and the chair votes aye to amend the job description to change all the Roman numerals to Arabic numerals.
There's
With
no
that,
reason to drive him crazy every time he looks at the SAP.
with that, is there a motion to approve the revised job description?
So moved.
second,
Second. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote, Ms. Jazinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Thorborn,
6, aye,
and the chair votes aye. So the job description for the deputy treasurer collector position is approved. And Mary's already discussed it. The proposal is to reclassify that position from a job grade 4 to a job grade 6, so that it's on the same level as other deputy positions. Any further discussion about that?
No.
Okay, is there a motion to reclassify the deputy treasurer collector position from a job grade 4 to a job grade 6?
so move,
Is there a second?
I have a question. Why are we moving it from a 4 to a 6?
Mary, do you want to?
I
address-
don't have that job description in front of me.
No, because we had already previously, Oh.
Okay,
yeah, you do, it's in the packet.
it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you like me to answer?
Yes, please.
Okay. Without looking back, it's twofold. Certainly the market is significantly different than your current payment at the grade 4 level. Also, a review of the work being done and quite frankly, the job description, and we did update the job description with some additional or broader duties based on how it's been operating now. So it's twofold. It's both the market, it's threefold. Well, the title is one issue. However, it's the work, the scope, the scale, the responsibilities currently being performed, and the market survey, which is why it was at a 6 level. A grade 4 level is the same as the very important business administrator ones. This is an assistant department head, a deputy department head, and with statutory authority. So we found that based on the salary data, the market data, and the job description, it should be at the grade 6.
So I'm going to ask this question again. So this deputy title, is this deputy title bumping the job descriptions and classifications upward to where we're paying a lot more money because we've changed their title?
No, it really has nothing to do with the title. I'm trying to be polite and say that's a preference issue. It means nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, the
And
title
it-
means nothing in terms of classification.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm understanding because that,
You'll see that when we get to the deputy town clerk position, that the change in title is not changing the classification of the
Okay.
job.
I would like to understand when we talk about the difference between, you've explained very nicely, thank you, the difference between the 4. Like, so what's the distinction between like the 5 and 6? So, and what, for me, I'm looking at helping you understand more about the difference in scope and the differences in sort of outcomes or accountability that help us understand why it has to be at this grade. I understand about the 4. You articulated that very well.
So there's 2 factors in a classification and compensation. It is the labor market. You are woefully under the labor market for this position. And I am not sure if the history was that this historically was a high-level clerical position. But even when you think about the assistant department head being in that grade 4 and looking at all the positions that are in that grade 4, there is statutory authority, while other positions do have statutory.
I understand the 4. I understand the
Right.
move from the 4. I do. I'm
Right.
asking about the distinction between how you selected from a 5 versus a 6.
A 5 versus a 6, you look
Yes,
at the
please.
level of the responsibility. When you evaluated a job, as I'm sure many of you know, but to reiterate, it's the scope, accountability, this person, helping invest your money. It's the scope, scale, accountability, responsibility, supervisory responsibility,
Yes.
all of those
Yes.
factors. So
Yes. So what I'm asking in this particular instance is, can you help me understand, if you're looking at those factors, the distinction between what they do now, and what would be different? Like, so what drove you? How did you decide between a 5 and a 6?
what we do is we
Thank
apply
you.
point factor system, and we
Okay.
in the point factor system, which is points, which is similar to the one the town uses and has used in the distinction between the 5, and you'll recall we just had one position be rated a 5. It's about, there are more standardized procedures in the 5. And there are more judgment and complexity in the 6. So those are the differences. Is it a standardized procedure, cyclical position versus more judgment, complexity, and scope of work? So those are the factors and the point factors. And I did do the point factor analysis on all of these positions that we reviewed. So that's where the difference is between a 5 and a 6.
Okay. Okay. I do think we need to do some work on our job descriptions, because I think I understand what you're saying. I don't know that this job description reflects what you said in terms of scope, in terms of authority, that help us look at the description and say, okay, I clearly can see why this is a 6.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm asking the questions.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. If you look at this and compare it to the now deputy treasurer position, it just doesn't look on the face of the job description necessarily to be at the same level. I think the reality is that they are, but it's just the way the job descriptions are done that doesn't necessarily reflect that.
Correct.
So, but Mary, what you're telling is you're based on your analysis after talking to these people, is that they are at the same level.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, are we ready to vote on the reclassification, or?
Yes, we can vote on it, but I do think that going forward, when things are coming to the committee, we just really have to have a different standard of information so that we are voting based on what we see. John's talked, the format is an issue, but we want to make sure that when we're voting based on what's in front of us. And right now we're voting on a change for a job description that doesn't reflect, I think, the grade that has been presented here. And so happy to move forward with the vote with the expectation that this description would be modified in some way to reflect that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And so when you're assessing the points, is it just on the face of the job description, or is it influenced by the other information you collect during the process?
It's all of the above. And I'm not sure if you're looking at the existing or the recommended position description.
We should have the recommended.
Okay. And the reality also is, I'm trying not to criticize the rating that was done by the former consultant. So when we evaluate this job and the responsibilities, this project was to do a review and review worksheet for the existing job descriptions. Even when we apply our points to the requirements in this job, we find it to be higher. I believe this job has been misclassified the whole time. I think that's what I'm trying to also say. And we apply the points not just on the written paper, but on the understanding of the work being done. And we coalesce all of that data with the salary survey, the work being done, and the review worksheet. We can take another look at the draft. I think the issue that is in front of you right now that you're grappling with is that the town does not have the standardized position descriptions. They're not all in the same format, so it makes it difficult to compare. And we would certainly recommend that be a project undertaking, either by an or a future grant or something like that. I think this is part of the issue. Your generic clerical descriptions are problematic. The having different formats is problematic. So we do need to fix that moving forward in another process.
Yeah, I would say the format is an issue. My line of questioning is related to the content and the language, which does not reflect a higher level of authority and responsibility and supervision. So I very much understand how to look at job descriptions and how to look at different formats and types of descriptions. My only point is that I'm happy to move forward with the vote. As a committee, we just need to make sure that when we're voting, we are voting on what's in front of us. And this particular description does not reflect fully and support fully the grade 6 recommendation that is coming forward to the committee.
Well, why don't I suggest this? Why don't we pull this from the agenda, put it off until our meeting the first week in January with the instruction that the job description be more fully revised to accurately, if it does, accurately reflect what would be the appropriate classification for the position. I don't have any problem doing that. I don't feel like we should move forward on something that we're not comfortable with. So whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how the other committee members feel, so.
Yes,
it's-
and I see that Jason is with
Hi,
us, so. Anyone, John?
I agree with you, Barry.
Okay, let's put this on hold. And move on at this point.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna have plenty of them to do, so I don't mind holding one off if we're not completely comfortable.
We can take the numbers out.
We've already done. Okay, let's move on to number 3, the deputy assessor. There are no changes to the job class, to the job description. This is solely a matter of the Collins Center review of the position. So Mary, why don't you explain the thinking here?
It's similar in that the market survey showed this position under the market. The position already had the title of deputy, and looking at the duties of the position, they are more in line when you apply the point factor system to the soon-to-be deputy treasurer collector, the deputy town clerk.
Okay. Questions for Mary on this one?
Barry, I'm not in a great position to talk yet, but I would just say it'd be really helpful for all of these to see the salary survey data and have some backup, because I think we have a very different path forward in the budget process. And I still haven't seen the quantification of what all this means if approved. So I would recommend, kind of similar to the discussion I just heard on the last job, I would recommend pulling all of these for today and providing that data to the committee, because I don't think any board member has seen any of that data. We're relying on a couple page memo. And I think we're going to be the ones that are going to have to stand up and defend this. And I don't think we have the data to defend it. I'm not saying I'm against any of this, but I just think that's the appropriate path forward at this point to make our jobs easier come March.
What data are you talking about?
The salary survey data that Mary keeps referencing.
We do have that.
It would be provided to us.
Yes. It's not in this packet, but it was in the packet when we originally reviewed the report.
I don't recall that.
There was a large spreadsheet that showed all of the towns in the survey and all of the compensation data that Collins Center collected. I mean,
Mr. Chairman, the summary report, the report itself had the summary as the attachments as well. It didn't have the full spreadsheet that you passed out, but the report itself shows the minimum pay and the maximum pay survey results. That's on page 8. And it starts on page 8 of the report.
I would still go to, I don't think any of us understand how much this is going to cost yet. And I think we need to have that data before appropriately voting on this.
Barry, what date was that information sent to us?
I
That
would
was the
have,
October report.
October report. I'm just going back
Uh,
to see if I can find it.
And I believe the chair then printed out a separate larger, the report is dated October, I believe for a meeting, the chair printed out an expansive spreadsheet.
I think that's the Excel sheet salary study. Jason, we received that on 11/16 from Vanessa. Can you go back through your emails?
Yeah, I saw that one.
Okay,
I still go by my comment I just made. I don't understand the cost and implication of what you're voting on, and I don't think it's gonna pass muster with where it has to go from here without us understanding that. Again, I just think we need the right data to back it up. And I think we've deviated here in the process from past practice of at least having one board member see how these things were scored, particularly in the past ones, not necessarily related to this one.
okay, well, we don't typically, in a survey like this, we don't see the scoring for each job. That's not the way it's done. We only see scoring when a new job comes up during the course of our work that had never been scored, and then we score it ourselves. So the underlying scoring process is typically done by the consultant, and we don't see all of the data and all of the scores for all of the positions. We see the backup, the underlying compensation data that is in the report and in the other table that we receive. So, and my other point would be, at the end of the day, while we have to be cognizant of cost, our job is to make sure people are placed appropriately in their grades. And I don't think we should be saying we shouldn't put someone in the appropriate grade because people in the town don't want to pay that. I don't think that's our job.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you have a complete package around it, you can explain it to others.
Sorry, we lost you there, Jason.
I was saying, that's not what I'm saying. I think you just have to be cognizant of it so that you can present the proper presentation to move this forward. Because we've spent a lot of time in this and I want it to move forward. And I think you need to have all of that to make the proper presentation at the next levels. Again, it should prevent you from going to the right classification, but you need to be cognizant in terms of, because it's going to come to what we're talking about soon, in terms of how to implement this. Because you go back to some of our prior votes, how the cost flows in impacts how you implement it. And I think we want a successful implementation, otherwise our time is just wasted.
Okay, that's fine, but I'm not sure how that impacts whether or not we approve it. You're talking about how we're going to present it to other people. But that's one thing, but whether or not we approve it seems to me a different thing.
I think it all is one package. And if you understand all the underlying details of how it came together, it presents a more supportable package moving forward.
Okay, what do other people think, feel?
I'd like to, Jason, can you talk more about when you talk about a complete package? Because I don't know how we have done this in the past, but what is it that you would want to see differently? Would you want to see a breakdown for each position that included not just the summary and the comparative data, but also the cost, and then like a roll-up cost from a budget perspective of what these changes will look like, what they will cost the town?
full disclosure, I've never been part of one in this role before. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And I don't think it's that hard. I just think it's the final missing piece to how you implement this.
Okay, but we have all the other numbers, and we'll go over them in terms of what the 4% costs, what the raising people to the minimum cost, what it costs to put people on the grid. We have all of those numbers.
That I agree with.
And they're in your package. So the only number we don't have in front of us now is what is the additional cost of doing this number of reclassifications. And again, my point
Which is what we're voting on right now.
But again, my point is the cost is the cost. It's either the right thing to do or it's not. And in terms of presenting it to other bodies, we can get the figure of what it costs. But in terms of our vote on whether it's the right thing to do, whatever it costs, it costs. I mean, that's my perspective, that I'm not going to not vote for it because someone tells me, yes, that's how it should be classified, but we don't want to pay for that. To me, they're two separate things, and our job is to determine what is the appropriate level for these positions, period. Okay. No other comments on this? All right. Well, let me put it this way. Do people feel they have or have received sufficient information to vote on whether to reclassify the deputy assessor position from a job grade 5 to a job grade 6? You can either nod or shake your head. I see no movements.
I'm good on that position, so. I
Yeah,
understand
think
what
I'm just-
Jason's saying. He
Yeah,
wants it, yeah, he wants the whole package together, so he has a total understanding. If somebody asks him a question, he can say, okay, well, here's my information, here's what we have, and he can explain it better.
I think
Kinda
there's
keep feeling
too
it.
many moving parts, and
Yeah.
so I would be used to seeing all of the pieces integrated together and as a package for this position. Let's vote on it as a package for this one, and then a roll up of what are the budgetary impacts overall. So I feel like we may have all the parts, but when we're making the votes or when we're looking at information, it is not completely integrated and put together. And doing that on the back end is possible, it's not optimal. And I think that's where it's then makes it difficult as we are looking at different formats of job descriptions, different language, as we're looking at sort of the inconsistencies, but trying to vote on the pieces, causes some pause as it relates to when we're done on the other end of this, what have we spent? I agree we should do the right thing. This is not about sort of do we put people in the right grades and right positions? I think it's sort of the sort of oversight or the responsibility from stewarding funds for the town and make sure that we're doing that and we're doing that in the right way based on the right information and data.
Right. And I agree. And just to be clear, in the package, I guess it's at the back, we have the charts that show all the cost information for everything we're doing, with the exception of the specific cost for upgrading these particular positions that we may vote on today. Okay, so then I will make a motion to reclassify the deputy assessor position from a job grade 5 to a job grade 6. Is there a second?
Second.
Barry,
Yes,
Paul Sabelli has his hand raised. Can I bring him over?
sure.
Hi, Barry, can you hear me?
We can.
I actually raised my hand before you made the motion. Just continue. I'm good to go for right now.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll have a roll call vote. Ms. Jazinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn,
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. That is approved. Moving on to senior library assistant. Mary, do you want to address this?
Certainly, thank you. The initial review of this position was there was a vacancy. There was somebody who was doing some of the duties, and then there was a promotion in the meantime. So we were able to meet with the senior library assistant in our latest process. And then I had incredible support from the library director providing information. And what is happening with this position is that the title really doesn't match the level of responsibilities. This is a case where the job description does have the responsibilities in it, but the title is not standard across libraries in our experience. The way that the senior library assistants are utilized are almost like assistant librarians in other places. They don't necessarily need the degree, but they're doing materials purchasing. They're working at a higher level than when you hear the title of library assistant, and it's very different than the library assistant position. So at first glance, it looks like, oh, you have a senior library assistant, when in fact they're doing librarian work. So we do recommend a change in that classification. If we were asked to opine on what we think the best title would be, it would be more like an assistant librarian than a senior library assistant. But that is, we were going with what is the job description review. So unfortunately, some of the issues we're experiencing now is that this scope of work was not to review job description. So it was to look at the existing job descriptions. So within the context of that, the job description does not comport with the salary level. So we are recommending that be at the grade 4.
Oh, well, are you saying that the job description, if you do the points on the job description, that it doesn't come out to a 4?
It certainly does when I do it, yes. It does come out to a 4.
But I'm talking about the current job description.
The current job description, as written, comes out to a 4.
Okay.
And because I think the nuance is, depending on who's reading it, you have to understand the level of work. You could read that job description and say, oh, they're purchasing, just like another position, like an administrative assistant would be purchasing office supplies. They're doing acquisitions, which is involved in the research, and that's real librarian work. So I think it might be a matter of some of the wording means different things. I actually pushed back on a library director. I'm like, well, this person can't be doing your acquisitions and purchasing materials and really running. They're much more of a supervisory and librarian position. They're not a degreed librarian, but they're doing higher level work.
So what would you recommend their title be instead of senior library assistant? You said something different.
In the world according to Mary, and I did not have this conversation with the library director because we weren't looking at that issue. What I have seen in other places is an assistant librarian, but there might be an issue with that with the degree. And so I would defer to the trustees and the director on something like that. So that's why we did not opine on that, because we were just looking at the classification.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Any other questions or for Mary on this or discussion?
So where are we, so what grade is that library, senior library assistant at right now, Barry, that we're moving it to a
So
4?
be from a 3 to a 4.
From a 3 to a 4. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the packet. Can you make sure, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the correct information. On what page are we, is there a description for this? I see a chart on page 6. Is that the chart I should be referring to?
Well, what are you looking for, Michelle?
What I'm looking for is the document that I have, and maybe I'm looking at it incorrectly, says the current grade is a C3. It says to move to an A2, but that may not be correct. Oh, that's the associate. Okay, I think I have it. Let's see. I'm looking for the chart that has this position that we're discussing.
Yeah,
right
it's
now.
part in the SAP, it's in Schedule A as a job grade 3. It's the same level now as an administrative assistant.
Correct. And what I'm looking for is on the packet that we were sent for this meeting, what page is that recommendation on? I see a page from pages 5 and 6, there's a list of recommended changes. And so I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right information to vote.
Okay, are you talking of when you say 5 and 6, and I have not seen Mary's memo, so are you talking about
No.
Mary?
Mr. Chairman,
what-
she's looking at the report from October, and that position is not
Okay.
listed there because it was
What
not.
I am looking at the packet that was sent for this board meeting.
Right, so
Okay.
So again, this is one of the tweaks, as I mentioned at the beginning, that occurred between, as a result of Mary's meeting with various people during the week. And I don't know, Mary, if it's covered in your memo, because I haven't seen it
is.
yet. So we had hoped to get the memo to you as soon as, well, we got it to you as soon as we could. So if it's in there,
The bottom of page 2.
You can proceed. I'm sorry, I don't see it. So let me, it's fine. Proceed.
okay. Is there a motion to reclassify the senior library assistant position from a job grade 3 to a job grade 4? No one wants to make a motion? Are there, do people have other questions? I'm just trying to understand reluctance.
I can't speak for the other committee members. What I can't make a motion on or vote on is information I can't see or find. And for me personally, I have a lot of documents. I asked the question and I want to see the documentation that I'm voting on. I think, and so that's all. I'm not saying it's not here. I'm saying I'm looking at a packet that says it's for today. And I just wanted to make sure I understood where the information was. So
Okay, it's not in
page 2.
It's not in what you were sent prior to me. It's in the memo that was sent out this morning.
Barry, this goes back to my comment that I made under the last one, which I obviously voted in favor of because I knew that was the right answer for that particular position. But with all due respect to all those that are involved in coming up with the packet, the preparation for this meeting is just disjointed. And while I would vote yes if the motion was made now because I understand this position, I would actually change my vote to no, not because of the position, but because Michelle doesn't feel like she has the right information. So what I would suggest for all these remaining positions is we table a vote. We come up with one complete package that everyone has everything in front of them. And we could probably knock this out in 15 minutes at the next meeting. If everyone has everything side by side and has all the right information, instead of 5 different memos coming at 5 different times right before the meeting.
Okay. So the only thing that I can think of that you might not have is the job description itself, which the board had previously approved. I'm happy to pull this one and include the job description for that position in the package. It's not clear to me what other information you would want.
I have the memo here that was sent this morning. So we can, if we need to move forward with the vote, and we should then talk about the way in which materials come out
Yeah.
for the committee going forward.
Okay. How do other people feel? I mean, I'm not looking.
Mary, this is getting too confusing. We're all over the place. We have, this information here, this information here. We got this information voted on this earlier. I'm starting to feel a little stressed that we don't have everything directly in front of us and we're making some very important votes and decisions right now. Could we please table the rest of this and I'm happy to help put it all together, but I think we need the job description. We need all of this information in front of us in order to make these an educated vote. We're just too piecemealed all over the place right now this morning. And I was fine to start us off, but yeah, I don't have this information in front of me either. I do have the memo. I read the memo. I don't have enough information. I'm not comfortable making any more votes on these job.
Well, let me say that why we can certainly pull the senior library assistant. The last one, the deputy town clerk, is just a change in title. We already have approved the job description for that. It's rated at a 6. We're just changing it from assistant town clerk to deputy town clerk at the same job grade it currently is. There's no change in the job grade. All we've done, we already adopted the deputy town clerk job description, but we didn't classify it because the Collins Center was in the process of doing their work. They've done their work. It's the same job. We're just substituting deputy town clerk for assistant town clerk. I would hope that one is pretty non-controversial.
But then you have classification.
Yeah, it's because we're putting a new title. We're putting a new title in, but in the SAP, but we've already agreed to do that. It's just where do we put it? And we're putting it the same place. We would put it the same place that the assistant town clerk position is now.
So there's no change in salary, there's no change in grade or step or going forward or anything. It's just the title change.
Correct.
Okay.
Can you, I apologize, can you explain the recommendation for the title change so that we are all clear on that?
Okay, they're not, the Collins Center is not recommending the title change. The board voted on the new job description for the deputy town clerk some months ago. So that's done. That piece is done already. So again, it was, but we didn't classify it at the time because the Collins Center was in the process of doing their work, and we thought we'll let them do it. And their classification is the same as it was as we had previously graded the assistant town clerk. And the town clerk agrees with that, by the way. He's not looking for an upgrade of that position.
All right. I move that we put number 4, the senior library assistant, on hold till the next meeting.
Yeah, I think we did. I already made the executive decision to do that. So
Okay.
we're on to the deputy town clerk. Any reason why we can't vote on this one now?
Is there a particular page in the packet that I should reference for that? Or is this just a agenda item that's listed?
Yeah, it's just an agenda item. It's just cleaning up an open thing. There, again, is no recommendation to change what we're already doing from the Collins Center. No change in the job description. It's just we were waiting for a classification. The classification comes out exactly the same as where the position did before.
Okay.
Okay. I will make a motion to classify the deputy town clerk position as job grade 6. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Jasinski,
aye.
Mr. Thorburn,
I,
Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. That is approved. Okay. We're now going to move on to item 6. Can you bring Tim Davis in? Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thanks. Thank you for joining us. You have a memo from Tim in the, oh, Mary, yeah, I think we're done with you for today. Thank you very much.
I bet you are done with me. All right. You all have a great day and I wish you all the best in the holiday season. Take care.
Mary, thank you so much.
Okay, you have a memo in the packet from Tim as well, his recommendations for a revised Schedule F, as well as background data that he collected on what the surrounding communities are paying for these positions. Tim, I'll turn it over to you if you want to add anything.
Sure, just a couple points. Historically, or the past couple of years, our schedule has been attached to Schedule C. So now that has been rid of, we're now a standalone for rec for seasonal positions. So that's what the adjustments for this schedule are, to reflect more accurately our positions, what's being paid out currently and what's being planned being paid out due to the state minimum wage increase. But these are seasonal positions specific to rec. All of the funds, all of the amounts paid out are self-generated through programs. So this has no impact on the operating budget of the town. So this is money in, money out through our revolving account. And mainly these are seasonal employees for the summertime. So summer camp counselors, supervisors, directors, and then in the school year, after school program monitors and program instructors.
Thank you. Questions for Tim?
Just a confirmation for Tim. I fully support that he knows the right salary ranges to go to attract the right talent to deliver high quality programs. My question, Tim, is just have you and the RecCom done a financial analysis to make sure that your programs will, at least break even or make a profit, create any unintended losses on at least your major programs? I know you have some smaller things that are hit or miss.
Yeah, as we're planning ahead, obviously right now we're planning summer actively. We are going about as if this is the approved. So we're taking into account the increases as well as placing who we believe is going to be coming back accordingly on the scale so that those amounts are proper, so that when we do release the programs, when our bigger ones, as you mentioned, Jason, take place, all this will be accounted for, our costs will be covered, and we should see no issues financially.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Tim? Or other discussion? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the what's identified in the attachment to Tim's memo as the proposed schedule we'll call it Schedule F, although it may end up being another designation as we put this SAP together. But we adopt that effective 7/1/23. Or let me rephrase that. Make a motion to recommend that this proposed schedule be substituted for the existing Schedule F in the SAP effective 7/1/23.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Thank
Is
you.
there-
Second.
Roll call vote, Ms. Jazinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Thorburn,
Aye,
Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. It is approved. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays, everybody.
Take care, Tim.
Okay, moving on to item 3B, the FY 24 increase. I have had conversations with the chair of the advisory committee about how we characterize the 4% increase that we previously approved. He would like us to break it out into a wage component and a cost of living component, not to change the 4%, but just for explanatory purposes. So it's clearer to people that part of it is a wage increase and part of it is effectively a COLA. I don't have a problem with this. It doesn't impact the 4%, which is, I think, what we care about. I would propose that we designate the 4% as 2% wage increase and 2% cost of living increase. But I open for discussion.
Why are we? Okay.
We're doing it to make it so for presentation purposes, let me put it that way, that he feels at the annual meeting, at town meeting, that it will be easier to present it that way. It will be better received that way than just throwing 4% out. The cost is, there's no actual difference. It's just semantics. But he's made a request that we do this. I don't have an objection. I don't know if anyone else does, but
Is there a page in our packet that outlines this discussion and supports it? I'm sorry, is there anything in here?
no, I don't know what we would, he's made a request that we
Well,
designated.
we've made a vote on a 4% increase, and I believe what we're now saying is we want to modify that in terms of how it's presented. So I'm asking or looking through, the packet because I'm looking for the justification for why we would do that. I'm not saying I don't agree. I'm saying that, again, I'm being asked to vote on something and I don't see a documentation in front of me to.
Okay, but
help me
I
understand.
think I just told you everything that I know. I was asked by the chair of the advisory committee if we would consider doing this because he felt it would make it easier and more acceptable to get approval at town meeting. That's all there is to it.
We're not referencing any of this as a COLA. We're just saying it's going to be this, and we're not, again, I said this at the last meeting, we have to be very careful of the terminology we're using when we're trying to explain things, because it's not merit increase, it's not this, it's not, we have to use the right terminology, because we're gonna get ourselves into a little bit of trouble if we start using words that we don't actually have not integrated into our system and we are not actually using.
But go, and that was true in the past, but going forward, now that we've adopted a grid, any additional increases that we vote will be COLAs.
Okay, but that's not what we have now, is what I'm saying. Barry.
No, you're right, but this is going forward. And if you do the 2 and 2, it's effectively I mean, for discussion purposes, it's no different than if we had the grid starting 7/1/23, because people are getting the 2%, and we would have effectively given them a 2% COLA. So it's no different than if we had put the grid in effective 7/1/23.
So then going forward, are we gonna have two categories that we have to give increases in, because that's how we're setting it up now? So we'll have a salary increase and a cost of living increase. So going forward, that's what we'll be doing. We'll be doing two different things.
Well, they'll automatically be getting the 2% because they'll be moving up a step every year. So all we'll be doing is deciding whether to grant an additional COLA on top of that.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Are there other discussion? And again, this
Barry,
is-
I'm fine with the 2 and 2. I think it's a little arbitrary, but like, I think it more comes down to, I understand the concern that advisory would have about 4%, but if you actually go back, given that they tend to be very data driven, if you actually go back to when we made the motion for the 4% at that meeting, we were looking at a spreadsheet that basically said, just to get people to the right spot, and we know that didn't even get a lot of people to the right spot in terms of the minimum their classification, we were going to have to do at least a 4%. I think what this is intended to do is, like, if you actually look at the SAP employees that got a 4%, but really didn't need to, like, I don't know if that's also part of this, in terms of they were fine where they were in their classification and really should have only gotten a COLA. That's, I think, the middle of the road here that we just need to make sure we're careful of. To so much Dorian's point, I agree, moving forward, it's going to be super easy to explain of how this is working and why we're recommending the step system. So I wouldn't go against a motion if that's what's coming, but I also think this can just be better explained with the data that we had in front of us at that time, realizing that a good number, I don't want to throw out the wrong percentage as I drive, but was going to need at least a 4% adjustment to get in the.
Yeah, and to be fair, to follow up on Jason's point, the chair of advisory didn't have any problem with the 4%. He sat in on our meetings. He's seen the information. He's not questioning the 4% at all. So it's just how we're going to describe it. That's all. And again, as Jason pointed out, the 2 and 2 is arbitrary. You can do 1.5 and 2.5, however you want to do it. I said, well, let's do 2 and 2, because when we go the steps, they're going to be 2%. And so, but again, there's no magic to any of this. In my mind, this is semantics. We've gotten the request. I just assume go along with these people because they have a lot on their plate, and I'm not looking to make waves with them. And I don't see the negative from our perspective, but
So Barry, let me ask this. Let me ask this to help make a motion here. Is there anyone on the personnel board, if we had a step system in place like we've already voted for this calendar year, that wouldn't have voted at least a 2% COLA increase based on the data that we had at that time? I.e., if we are already on a step system, would we have done at least a 2% COLA?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would have.
All right, so I'll go ahead, Dorian, sorry.
On top of a wage increase.
On top of 2%, the 2% they would get on the step.
Right, so you're getting a 2% automatic increase, and then you're gonna get cost of living increase. Understand. We have to make sure we're explaining this correctly. That's not how we voted it earlier. We voted it as a wage increase. So I have a problem with saying, well, we voted it this way, but because advisory wants us to make it easy for them, we're going to do this. That's not what we voted. So I don't know. It's not really being very truthful to me, but I don't know how to handle this kind of stuff. So I'm just going to go. I'll go with the board. I'll vote. I'll support whatever the majority of you guys want, because that's not what it is, but I understand to explain it at a town meeting, semantics. I'm just gonna go with however the majority of you guys vote on this one.
I'm gonna
So,
call on you
Dorian,
first. I'm gonna call on you first, Dorian. So,
Well,
So,
call me
Dorian-
last then, because however you guys vote, I'm just gonna follow suit, because to me, we voted one way. And now advisory, a different board wants us to explain it a different way, and to me, it's not really being totally truthful, but I understand why you want to do it that way, so I'm gonna just
Yeah, and
follow my board.
So Dorian, it sounds like it's just the chair. I don't know that advisory has discussed it yet, but I think he's obviously trying to collaborate, knowing that, you know, the natural initial reaction of 4% is probably not going to be a positive one. So
Right.
so I'm going to move something that I think will hopefully also get you comfortable, and just say, so I'm going to move that had the personnel board not been in the middle of a salary compensation study, we would have recommended at least a 2% cost of living salary adjustment for the next fiscal year.
okay. And that was a motion, Jason?
It was.
Okay,
Second.
is there a second? Okay, all in favor, Mr. Thorburn, Ms. Jones Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
Ms. Jazinski,
Aye,
and the chair votes aye. That is approved.
thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. That's better.
All right, moving on to item C. So let's recap where we are, and this will bring us to the charts at the back of the package. So what we've done to date is we voted a 4% increase effective 7/1/23 and adopted the salary schedule, not the grade, the salary schedule in the Collins report effective 7/1/23. We also voted to bring anyone who was under the minimums at that point up to the minimums. Okay, so the cost, and this chart is, there are two charts at the back of your package. And we'll look at the ones at the bottom where there are two totals, one total of 125,159 and also 52,449. Does everybody see that chart? Okay, so the 125,159 is just the cost of giving everyone a 4% increase. Okay. So the 52,449 represents the cost of two things. One, bringing people up to the minimum, and that's on the next page. You'll see that's 25,383. Chart that says move to new minimum employees. That's a list of the employees and what the cost is to move them up effective 7/1/23. Okay, what we haven't voted on yet, excuse me, is the placement of people on the grid effective 1/1/24. To me, the obvious way to do that is to put them in the obviously in whatever their classification is, in the step that's closest to but not below whatever their compensation is as of 12/31/23. Does that make sense to people? You clear in what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. If we
Barry,
were to-
I guess my comment I would just make on that is I'm not sure based on where we're at and knowing what we'll do in January, kind of leaving some of the reclassifications questions off to the side. I'm not sure why you don't just either to make all of this effective July 1 or all of it effective January 1. I think it unfortunately causes like a ton of rework for what I'll call probably rounding compared to the overall impact of this. And I think we just need to set an anchor date on this based on costing figures and other, and probably need to have both available as you would select board and advisory. But I would not be in favor of bifurcating this process. I think it's all or nothing. And I think you just get them on the grid on a certain date and get people up to the minimum and not kind of have to then redo it 6 months into the year. So I think really the decision for me would be doing it all on July 1st or all on January 1st, just to make it simpler for all parties involved.
Well, my concern about with that, well, I have a couple of concerns. One is we already voted it this way, and advisory and everyone else is aware we voted it this way. Number two, you're adding about $13,500 in costs in implementing the grid and putting people on the grid on July 1 as opposed to January 1. And my larger concern is if you now have raised the issue of the timing of the grid, I'm fearful that advisory or town meeting will say, well, why do we want to spend that $27,000 on the grid now? Let's put implementing that off a year and save the town $27,000. That's just.
I think that's a possible risk, but I think if properly articulated, the cost to replace any one of these individuals is far greater than that, regardless of what classification they're in, due to training, lost time, lost efficiency for the residents. So the reason I think we took the prior votes, though, the way we did, was because I don't think we thought we were going to get through some of this other stuff that we've now started to do in this meeting and will finalize in early January. And if I remember when Mr. Sabelli was in front of us and I was making some of those motions, that's why we were doing it that way. We were trying to give budget clarification. So, I do think potentially what someone may say is just implement everything on January 1 as opposed to July 1. I do think that's a potential alternative. And that's similar to how departments implement changes all the time in the town. But, I just think it'd be simpler to do it all together. I realize there's a small cost to it. But, I'll go along with whatever we think is going to be the most plausible to actually implement the work of this committee and board.
I mean, I am very concerned about the risk of doing that at this point. And also I guess I don't get the point about the risk of losing people. I don't think the difference between what they're getting on July 1 and what additional amount, some employees won't get anything. Some will get it, but that delta is going to drive people to leave. So I don't get that point.
No,
but
the risk question was on your comment of someone on advisory or at town meeting just say, wait another year to implement the grid. That was what the year versus the 6 months. I guess I mean, Mark and Brian have a view on this. I mean, they are far closer to the budget than any one of us. And, they also will be in charge of implementing it. So I'd like to hear where they're at.
Sure. Mark, you want to?
So it's funny, I was just talking with Brian about this earlier and trying to understand, when all of these votes come down and then we understand what we're looking to do and then how, we're going to implement it. It's, and I think the process to get to the implementation piece, I'm looking at, I'll let Brian speak, I think from July 1st forward. I'm thinking about from now until March 25th. And how this rolls out to town meeting and what changes are made into the SAP and how the funding is either incorporated into the budgets or if there is going to be some in the budgets and then also some incorporation into an omnibus line item, similar to how the CBA agreements are done when they're approved by town meeting. So I think, I'll let Brian speak to the implementation piece because really his office is going to carry the burden on that.
Okay. Brian? I wonder if he's away from his desk.
Well, if he was going to run, he ran a while ago.
Well, let me take a step back then. Is everyone in favor of, in terms of implementation, we'll put off, if we're going to change the date of implementing the grid.
Yeah, hang on. He's I have a special guest.
I was at Kristen's desk, sorry.
It's okay.
I'm Kristen today. So anyway, just a quick comment. Yeah, splitting it into two would certainly be a little more administrative work on our end internally. Not a killer, but it would be more work. Me and Mark went back and forth on this, which is better for town meeting. I think that's a policy decision more than anything else. So I'm not sure. I keep going back one way and the other. Let's get it done at once. Let's not get it done at once. So, I wish I could give you a solid opinion on that one, but each choice has negatives and positives. I'll just leave it at that.
Barry, my concern, if we change the July 1, the employer is going to lose out on half a year of a salary increase, which they're probably counting on at this point. So Jason,
I don't
have any thoughts on that?
I don't think anyone's arguing we should put off the July 1 4% increase. I think we're all clear.
So we would still do that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the issue is whether you move the grid from January 1, 2024, the implementation of the grid, if you move it to July 1, 2023, some employees will get an additional bump based on where they're put on the step. So they get more than their 4%. They get all of that on July 1, as opposed to getting the 4% on July 1 and then possibly some additional amount on January 1.
All right, so they're definitely getting the 4% on July 1, and then we're voting on moving people. So Jason, are you of the same opinion? Not to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess where I'm at, I certainly don't want to add cost to the budget, but I think from a transparency perspective, we need to do this on July 1, all like full bore, like everything we've discussed should be implemented July 1, so you have a full year budget impact, so that then when you're going to do the budgets for next year, there's not going to be kind of, I'll call this whipsaw event, because you only had half a year of something baked into this year's budget. So certainly advisory select board and town meeting can take a different view, but I think the cleanest way is if we think that this is the right, going back to some of the comments that were made under the classification, if we think this is the right system, we think these are the right classifications, which I know we still have to work through a little bit, and we think these are the right numbers, we should, raise and appropriate for a full year of that and get these folks compensated at market at the first possible time, which is the beginning of the fiscal year. So that would be what I would be proposing now. Someone can certainly change that as we go through the budget process, but I think going in line with what I think personnel board's job is we're recommending that that's what we believe market is. And then it also gives people a full year to earn the step as well, because I'm not sure if you implement it on January 1st, would you automatically move people the next year? Typically you wouldn't, but I think the expectation is that they were going to. So just another consideration to throw out there. So if I had to motion something, I would just motion that we make all of this effective July 1, 23 for the grid, the 4% in the min, and get everyone to where they need to be. We can talk about how to deal with the reclassifications once we get through all those, because I think that should be completely separate from this decision.
Okay, John,
I'll make that motion. We put this all as of effective July 1st, 23.
okay, it's been so moved. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, Mr. Thorburn,
Aye.
Ms. Jazinski,
aye.
Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
and the chair votes no. Okay, so that is approved. Now, the placement of individuals on the grid, as I said, I think the cleanest, simplest way is to place people at the in their grade at the step closest to, but not below, where their compensation is now as the last day of June of 2023. No, I'm sorry, effective after they've received the 4% increase, to place them on the grid at the step closest to, but not below, what their compensation then is. If that makes sense to people.
Mark, does that make sense?
Yeah, obviously, if you're going to put people, if you're going to move people, you want to put them in a place that doesn't cause a salary decrease. And not everything is going to move perfectly. So there's going to be some slight adjustments, to get people onto the grid.
Thank you.
Any other discussion about that?
Nope.
Nope.
All right, I will make a motion that effective 7/1/23, that employees, after having received a 4% wage increase and anyone having moved to the minimum for their job grade, be placed on the grid at the step closest to, but not below, their then current rate of pay.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like you to just give me one more explanation of that. So so we're going from grade to step. So say you're a grade 6, you've been moved to a grade 7. So we're going to take whatever their salary is, and we're going to place them in the step that is equal to or similar to their salary.
So let's take someone, let's say they're a grade 6, and we give them a 4% increase.
Right.
Okay. Now we look for what step is closest to that, whatever their wages at that point in time, but not below. So you just put them in the next step that's closest to whatever their salary was after the 4% increase.
Okay, so what if their salary doesn't match that and it costs more money? What are we doing?
Well, that's the $27,000 we're talking about.
Okay.
That's the cost of putting people into the right step, is $27,000.
Okay, so we've already looked at all of that. We have everybody placed into wherever they need to be going.
Yeah, that's in the
I
case.
just want to make sure that we're on the same page and that we have a full understanding that we're ready to go with moving them and doing those things.
Yep.
Okay, I'm good then. Thank you.
Okay, there was a second. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll vote. Mr. Thorburn,
Aye.
Ms. Jazinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. That is approved. Okay, moving on to new business. Is Is Chief Newell with us? Yes.
Yes, I'm here.
Good morning, Chief.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. So anything you want to add to the, we have obviously the job description in the packet. Anything you want to say about this?
Yes, nothing additional to add. There was just some minor changes made to the job description itself, which included making some of the language gender neutral. We're going to be adding a body camera program to our department, so I would need the lieutenant to help assist me with running the program. That was added in there. In meeting with the sergeants, it was having at the discretion of the chief to arrange those meetings. Just, it would affect overtime and things like that. So, and then just adding in the post requirements that are now part of Massachusetts requirements for the position. So the lieutenant would have to maintain post certification, but that is it.
Okay, and I understand this has been approved by the select board previously. Any questions for the chief about the job description? Okay, John?
Is it appropriate to address something in the condition of employment policy?
Well, it's at this point, I think we're only considering whether or not to approve the job description. So other change, we'll get to other changes in the SAP at a later meeting, but I think for now, we're only focused on whether we're going to approve the job description or not.
I think this goes hand in hand with our SAP, which my question would be, the SAP says that the lieutenant would be carrying some of his union benefits with him. In the agreement, my question probably is to Mark, is the clothing allowance and equipment, the agreement doesn't have it, it just says they'll be entitled to them, but it doesn't have any amount or anything. But is the new lieutenant going to get a clothing allowance and equipment? And what's his vacation schedule going to be?
So what Mr. Thorburn is referencing is a separate policy that the board, the select board, has established, or actually just revised for the lieutenant position. And there, as you've referenced, yes, the lieutenant would be entitled to those benefits that are listed. There are no dollar numbers listed there because they're entitled to the same benefit that would be received by members of the union. If that number changes, and John, I'm sure you're aware those numbers change every 3 years or so, depending, we would then have to change the policy. So I think it's easier and it was better for the items to be referenced rather than the dollar amounts, because the items are not going to change. The dollar amounts could possibly change. As to vacation schedule, the employee is going to be subject to the same vacation schedule as in the SAP.
Okay, I see we have a question from Mr. Rooney. Can you bring Mr. Rooney in?
You didn't let me finish.
Oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
Am I correct, Mark, in that going by the SAP vacation schedule versus the union vacation schedules, the new lieutenant, if he comes from within, would lose several weeks of vacation?
There is a difference in the schedule, yes.
My question is, why doesn't that carry over? What he's entitled to under the union and what he's disagreement here. I know what your answer is going to be, but I want to hear it.
But you want to hear me say it anyway, right? So, this is a management position. This is a non-union position, and it is not a union position. So, like I said, we have different, not everything is equal. If everything was equal, then I'm not sure there's any benefit to having, unions and non-unions. So.
Okay, I don't agree with that, but that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Can you bring Mr. Rooney in?
While they bring Mr. Rooney in, I just remind the personnel board that we are, first of all, this sounds like it should fall under the select board policy in whatever they decide based on this special provision in the SAP. But I would remind the personnel board, we are considering changes to the vacation policy that we haven't come back to, right? And if those changes go through, I don't know if that changes the answer that Mark just gave in terms of who has more. And I think it also depends on the tenure of the employee that actually gets promoted.
Okay. Mr. Rooney.
Yes,
Welcome.
Barry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for bringing me over and giving me an opportunity. I think I know or worked with most of you on the screen and with Jason. Michelle, I am not so sure. And to the extent that this constitute a meeting, nice to meet you. Full disclosure. I have always been, and I will be, an advocate for our public safety employees, both police and fire, particularly close with the police issues, only insofar as I grew up, Michelle, in a police station. My dad was a chief in Waltham. And as a prosecutor, I worked with departments as big as Boston and as small as Bolton. And my comments really relate to what Mr. Thornburg was just discussing, because if we have two internal candidates who are eligible to apply for this lieutenant position, my research, and again, I'm not going to cross the Rubicon on this, and I would certainly encourage anyone to verify. We'll come back with different data, is that if one of the sergeants were to receive the promotion to lieutenant, because of the union and non-union issues, they lose 15 vacation days and 17 administration days. So that's a total of 32 days, which is really is significant. And as Mark mentioned before his last comment, that when a person is being elevated internally to certainly to a command position, you don't want that person to have to lose either pay or benefits. So that is an important thing, which I think the personnel board should at least review and recognize when you are setting the minimum and maximum salaries. And I realize, Barry, that that's not the topic of this meeting, but I appreciate the ability to put a stake in that ground. The other thing that I've done is I've done some comparable research, and Michelle, you mentioned doing that, and I think it's a very important part of this analysis, because when you look at the lieutenant position in the other towns, you've got to make sure that you're comparing our lieutenant position with what that lieutenant does. In other words, you really need to make sure that you're doing apples to apples. And the reason that that is significant is that, I'll take Westboro for an example. Westboro has 3 lieutenants and a deputy chief. The lieutenants in Westboro are not the second in command. The lieutenant in Southborough would be the second in command. In addition to that, one of the lieutenants, one of his job duties is the body camera, which is an exceptionally time-consuming opportunity. The lieutenant in Westboro also makes $138,000. He makes $138, but again, is not the second in command, and does not have the additional duties associated with the duties that Chief Newell needs and is in the job description. So just to come full circle, I really think it's important, and I do believe it's what Mr. Thornburn was concerned about, and what he raised is that when you're considering the overall benefit package for the next lieutenant, and fortunately, the two candidates that we have internally, either of them would be remarkable lieutenants. But when you consider the package, you really need to recognize that it just, at the end of the day, it's not fair for someone to work as hard as these two people have worked to give them a new position, to take away 32 days of pay, well, not pay, 32 days of both vacation and administrative time. Because you know what, it just, to me, it just does not seem fair. And again, morale is a very important component of how a police department works. And right now, you guys and the town should be commended. We've got a tremendous police force. So Barry, again, I really thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, to speak to this group. And that's all I have to say. And I'll stand down and I'll certainly answer any questions that anybody has. But thank you, Barry. And of course, happy holidays to all of you.
Thank you, John. I guess the question I would have, and we're getting a little afield here because we're just supposed to be doing the job description, but I guess my general question would be, it seems to me some of what you're asking for is probably more before the select board than it is for us. I guess we could theoretically change language in the SAP, but
Barry, Barry, you're absolutely right. And I made this same presentation, if you will, to the select board with respect to the position, and in particular with regards to overtime, affording the lieutenant an opportunity to do overtime position. I think it's only, I would squeeze it into your peg only insofar as you are the ones that control, I believe, the setting of the minimum and the maximum salary. So it doesn't fit very comfortably, of course, in your agenda item. I noted that from the get-go. If I'm not available for the next time that it does come up on your agenda item, I just wanted to make sure that you guys at least had an alternative perspective or a different perspective. But you're right, Barry. I did everything I could in front of the selectmen, and now I'm trying to do everything I can in front of you.
okay. I appreciate that. And certainly now that we have a revised job description, we can properly regrade it and determine whether it's where it should be on the salary schedule.
So Barry, I to John's comments, I think when Mary came before us initially, this was the exact question I think I had asked her, and I know we were in the process of a chief transition at that point, and she said she had not had conversation with them. So I would suggest, and I'll actually just make a motion here, that the personnel board approve the revised job description in front of us, with the understanding that we will ask the Collins Center to analyze the job description and do all the same comparable data that we just did for every other SAP position, and report back to us on whether the current classification is still appropriate.
Yeah, I agree. There may be an issue of being able to get that done in time for when we need to get it done. But yeah, I think that's what we need to do. So there is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, have a vote. Mr. Thorburn,
Aye.
Ms. Jasinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Malinowski,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. All right, I will now make a motion to approve the revised job description for the police lieutenant position.
Barry, I think that was in my motion. I think we just approved it.
Oh, was it? I thought
I basically said, I said to approve the job description with the understanding that once approved, it would go to Collins Center for potential reclassification.
Sorry, that's fine.
Thank you,
Okay.
everybody.
All right, thank you. Can I bring Mr. Parent in?
Good morning.
Good morning, John. Do you want to add anything to what's in your memo?
No, I think it pretty much sums it up. I mean, we just have looks like it's a pretty good inequity going on here between employees on their personal time, basically. I think it pretty much speaks for itself, and I'm really hoping I can have the support of the board on this.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions. So looking at what stipends that have been paid in your department, it doesn't seem like anyone's even getting the maximum.
Not up to the maximum. No one, because it was last voted at the 150.15. They only wrote the original SAP to go up to 200, so they wouldn't have to go back if you wanted to go higher up to 200. But needless to say, we want to go over the 200 at this point, so I need to come to you for authorization.
Okay, when you say, I guess I'm confused. When you say it was voted at 150, who voted what?
We set a fee way back when. And basically we looked at like $150 a week, thinking that would be fair compensation. As you look at it now and you're comparing to other departments and you're looking at what we're asking these people to give up in their personal lives for it, it's not even remotely fair. We're paying people less than $1 an hour to give up their weekends and their nights and their holidays. We've literally had guys have to come in on Christmas Day, on Thanksgiving Day. It's like, we really need to make an adjustment to this. And where the DPW currently is, that's a more realistic number. Is it something any of us would probably be willing to work for? Probably not. But I think that that's a better place than where they are by all means.
Okay, I'm just still confused why you wouldn't be paying the $200.
Because we haven't raised it till now. We started looking at it and going, okay, I want to compare this to the other departments. So upon examination, I'm going, yeah, we're underpaying this.
But I mean, it's been in the SAP for some period of time at 200.
Yep. And this is when we started looking at this and comparing to the other departments. Because the guys brought it up to me last year. They said, hey, is there any chance the stipend could be increased? And so I took a look at it. And when I'm comparing and contrasting, it's sticking out like a sore thumb that, yeah, I think we do need to make an adjustment to this.
Okay, the thing I would note and I think most of you know this, is the DPW, that's through a union contract. So while we look at that, we don't typically say we've got to do what are in the union contracts, because there are a lot of elements in the union contracts that get negotiated. So, but just
I would agree with that, Barry. For normal situation, yes, but this is their personal lives you're asking to adjust. So I do think that's a fair comparison to a union.
Okay, but so you have people who are getting 150 over 2 weeks, and what you're saying is they could get up to 800 over 2 weeks?
Yep.
I don't know how others on board feel about this.
So I understand John's position and the position of his team, but I think this language goes well beyond the facilities department is my concern. And I guess before the personnel board takes any action, I think I would ask Mr. Purple or whoever he designates to summarize any and all positions within the SAP that are subject to on-call compensation. I'm surmising that the position we just talked about may potentially be included in that, and come back to us with a summary that shows what the current practice is, what the current pay is, obviously not to exceed the 200 per week, and when it's utilized. So for example, John may tell us, like when he fills out his, it's 52 weeks a year, 365 days a year, nights and weekends, versus other positions may be on call when the department head is not around or something like that. I just think we need a summary, because I think this language, if adjusted, has the potential to impact beyond facilities. And Barry, I do agree with your point to an extent, right? The union negotiated what they negotiated, and obviously they're on call for different sorts of events. And I don't know that any one is more important than another. And I'm not going to start, saying what's, that's all about. But I also would probably, say this is solely for the person to be available to come in. We do compensate, I'm assuming, if they do come in at an overtime level on, off hours, whether it be through comp time or overtime.
Exactly. And to Jason's point, this is strictly for the ability to be on call. We are not asking for what the DPW has as in minimums. We only pay for the time they go in. I'm not looking to go for like a 4-hour or 6-hour minimum. This is strictly for their personal time. This is an apples to apples comparison.
Okay, Mark, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so to the comment that Mr. Malinowski made, he wants me to take a look at this. I think I can give you the results of that investigation already. The only use of this that we have to date has been facilities department. At the 100.
You mean the only non-union?
Sorry, well, we're right. So the only non-union use of this under the SAP has been facilities. I am mystified by the $150.15 vote that was taken in 2017 for this as to how that number was arrived at. But I share the concern that of doing anything with this unless the board is willing to put some fences around it, because there, any SAP employee this could be applied to, for this on-call pay. So, I think it would be easy enough at this point if you wanted to, to increase the pay for the facilities up to the 200. That is within your purview to at least do that at this point. But I wouldn't recommend making any change to this above the 200 unless you're going to address the issue of who it applies to beyond who historically it is applied to at this point, which has simply been facilities.
I would agree with Mr. Purple. I think that's a good safeguard to throw in. You could literally put the wording in for the facilities department on-call response individual. I think it's a very smart move, actually.
Okay, I'm still confused because Mark, you just referenced the 2017 vote by who? Who voted?
Personnel board.
Voted to cap
Personnel
it at
board. There was this came into the bylaw in 2016. This particular clause about the on-call pay. Ms. Hale had done a quick review of that and could not find it in the bylaw before 2016. There was a memo issued by personnel board based on a vote, and again, I'd have to go back in 2017, authorizing assumably the request from facilities at that point, to authorize up to $150.15 per week for any facilities employees who had to be on call. And that is broken down into a daily rate by the Treasurer Collector's Office. So that was I'm kind of with you, Barry, on whether or not that actually requires a vote of the board for, to implement that piece of the bylaw, but that's how it has been done in the only instance of it being used.
So what you're saying is 6F was interpreted to mean that the personnel board could authorize up to 200, but that any specific amount, any specific request, the personnel board would set the level of it.
That's what has happened. So whether the interpretation of this, of this constitution of the personnel board is different is a whole separate matter. But the way that it had been done is that the bylaw allowed up to 200 and the personnel board granted, just over 150 for facilities.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think it makes sense to put a limitation on whatever we do so that this is not abused going forward. So to me, there are a couple of pieces here. What, if anything, we want to do on the amount? And do we want to revise 6F so it's limited to the facilities department? And again, what Mark said about this being the only department that's used it, that I did check with Brian on that. He confirmed that this is the only department that has used this. So I think that should be pretty straightforward in terms of limiting it. My own personal view is it seems like a huge jump from 150 to 400. Or John, go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the SAP, section 6F, we have it shall be eligible to earn a weekly stipend not to exceed $200 per week. So that leaves a margin from $0 to $200. Now, I wasn't on the board. I don't know where that 15-cent thing come in, but to me, that says that an on-call personnel in the facilities could be paid to 200 or anywhere downward. But I don't know who sets what the rate that they're doing. I don't know. But I would say I find it interesting that I know from the police department having the highway on, the on-call person on the highway. That again, we don't have that sheet as to how many times the highway guys are called in, but it doesn't seem like much time that facilities for all the facilities they're responsible for. It doesn't seem like this year that they've been called back that much.
John, this actually isn't for how many times you call back. This is for the times that you have to be available.
Yeah,
As I'm sure you're aware, through the departments, they can't drink alcohol. They can't really leave the state. They can't travel far from home. They have to be in working condition for an entire week at a time around the clock. I mean, so realistically, $420 a week, that's pretty cheap money to ask someone to do that. They're giving up their lives.
Yeah. No, I understand. I stand corrected, but this list that you provided us here is the entire list for the year so far.
That's just the stipend amount. That doesn't show how many times they come in, John.
Yeah, I know. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the stipend. Okay.
So John, just to confirm, this is basically to cover nights.
Nights,
nighttime, and
weekends,
weekend.
holidays, everything. Yeah.
Okay. So Barry, here's what I would suggest to move this piece of the conversation forward. I'm candidly, unfortunately, not ready to vote in the affirmative on this today, not because I don't think it needs to be changed. What I'd like to do is look at our comparable communities and how they deal with this, and come back to the next meeting on this item with potentially two motions. One, to hopefully fix the short-term issue of getting them up to the minimum that's in the SAP, but also looking at this more broadly of saying whether we put a specific stipend or on-call rate into the SAP related to facilities and potentially strike this language. I want to look at how other towns are dealing with this, because obviously every town has to deal with this. They may have, now full disclosure, I understand in some towns facilities may be within a union as well, especially if it falls under the DPW. I know some towns do that, but I just would like to look at it a little more. I'm happy to liaise offline with Mr. Parent and Mr. Purple and anyone else involved. But I just think there's some questions that we can, learn from others on to come up with the right answer here.
Okay. Other thoughts? Okay, we will put this on hold until our next meeting. We're going to have a very full agenda the next meeting, and there are things that we will not be able to put on hold at that point. So people should be prepared for a long meeting in January. Okay, is there any other business before the committee today, the board today?
Nope.
Sorry?
Nope.
No. Is there any public comment? I don't see any hands raised. We're good there. All right, calendar, first week in January.
Are you thinking a morning meeting, Barry?
I'm flexible, whatever works for people.
I'm traveling the first week in January, so I'm not available.
I'm available the whole week except Monday.
I can be fairly flexible that week. And if we're looking and potentially even into like the 9th,
Are you right back?
if Michelle's available available and back then.
Yeah, is Brian still around? Mark?
Yeah, he's right here. He's tried to get out twice, but he's still here.
Okay. You tell me, Brian, when is our drop dead date?
Well, we have the budget meeting the end of January. I'd push it back a couple weeks from that, so say roughly mid-January. I'd like to have everything kind of buttoned up.
Okay, then how about Michelle? Are you back on the 9th?
That'd be great. That'd be good.
I am but I need to have a time. I have other meetings on the 9th.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think the rest of us can be fairly flexible on the, unless someone tells me differently on the 9th, that you.
Yeah, I can either, oh, I'm sorry, please go ahead. Jason.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say I can be flexible at date, but also would throw out evening as a potential option, given the amount of content we have.
So Michelle, pick a time that works for you.
I can do something around 3 o'clock, which could, it's late afternoon. We can, if we need to go into evening.
Does that work for everyone?
Yep.
John?
3 p.m. on the 9th.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting?
Hopefully in person.
Well, I was all set to go in today.
Well, I
"Oh."
didn't want to expose you to my my malady. So that was one
Thank
of
you.
the.
I appreciate that.
Well, if it's in person, I won't, I need time to get there. I thought it was Zoom. So my other meeting ends at 3. So now we probably should say 3:30 because I need to get there if you want to do an in-person meeting.
Okay. 3:30, I assume that doesn't change for anybody?
Nope.
Okay. We will meet at 3:30 on January 9th. All right, if there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, Mr. Thorburn,
Aye.
Mr. Zinsky,
Aye.
Ms. Jones Johnson,
Aye.
Malinowski,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Have a happy new year, happy holidays.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Holidays.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.